Greetings, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs. Today, I want to take you into the heart of one of the greatest battles ever fought in the wizarding world. And I'll do so by telling you the story of a group as mysterious as they are legendary. And no, I'm not talking about the Butterbeer Circle of Hogsmeade. No, it's not that fifth novel from the Muggle series you all love so dearly. I'm talking about the Order of the Phoenix, a group of rebels, heroes, and visionaries, willing to sacrifice everything to stop the relentless rise of you-know-who and his ruthless army of Death Eaters. James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew. Yes, all 4 prominent members of the Order. In a way, this story is the true continuation of the tragic saga of the Marauders, but intertwined with the equally tragic fates of many other brave witches and wizards, the Longbottoms, Severus Snape, Lily Evans. All names carved into history, all names you know well. But who's your favorite member and why? Let me know in the comments, because today I'm not just here to tell you their story, but above all, to honor them. For just like the phoenix that gives them their name, even after death, their deeds rise again, immortal through the ages of time.
Once, there was a group of 4 young friends, 4 wizards, bold in spirit, driven by ambition, bound by unshakable loyalty to one another. They shared a fierce desire to leave their mark on the wizarding world.
I solemnly swear
They were known as the Marauders.
that I am up to no good.
Their years as students at Hogwarts had come to an end, but the bond they shared remained unbroken. Though hope still shaped their vision of the future, a shadow loomed ever closer, a threat growing with each passing moment. The war, once spoken of in whispers, had finally begun. The First Wizarding War, as the Daily Prophet had dubbed it, and from the very start, it was clear that this would be no fleeting conflict. How could it be that even Albus Dumbledore, by many considered the greatest wizard of all time, the very man who had defeated Gellert Grindelwald and ended the global wizarding war in 1945, now seemed troubled by the rise of the one whose name most dared not speak, Voldemort?
Dumbledore? Afraid?
James Potter could scarcely believe it.
You're joking.
The young wizard had only recently married the love of his life, the witch Lily Evans, in a quiet ceremony, one kept secret from many due to the ever-present dangers of war. Though the conflict had only just begun, the safety of those who opposed Muggle-born discrimination and the ideology of pure blood supremacy was already in constant jeopardy. And for those who dared to stand openly against it, the risk was even greater, not just for themselves, but above all, for those they held dear. The Death Eaters were on the hunt, ready to spread terror and enforce their ideology with an iron fist, wielding the darkest and most forbidden of magical arts. Not since 1717, when they were outlawed by the Ministry of Magic, had there been such a staggering number of victims claimed by the unforgivable curses. And to such violence, the Ministry responded in kind. Bartemius Crouch, as head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, led the Ministry's campaign against Voldemort's forces, his hatred of the dark arts becoming infamous. Any voices calling for moderation were swiftly silenced as Crouch launched a nationwide crusade against Voldemort and his followers, one marked by a level of brutality, ruthlessness, and mercilessness that had never been seen before, taking even the Death Eaters by surprise. The war had now reached a point of no return.
He was tipped as the next Minister for Magic. He's a great wizard, Barty Crouch, powerfully magical and power-hungry. Oh, never a Voldemort supporter. No, Barty Crouch was always very outspoken against the dark side. But I would say he became as ruthless and cruel as many on the dark side.
James and Lily,
have to fight.
feeling powerless in the face of the ongoing slaughter, knew they had to act.
Justice will be served.
It was a sentiment shared by their dearest friend, Sirius Black, who had stood by James's side as his best man on their wedding day. Sirius, having severed all ties with his own family due to their fanatical pureblood ideology and their unwavering, even financial support of the Dark Lord's war campaign, felt a personal duty to stop his cousin Bellatrix. Rumors spoke of her swift rise through the Death Eater ranks, becoming one of Voldemort's most devoted and lethal followers, leaving a trail of bodies in her wake. But it was different thoughts that weighed heavily on young Remus Lupin. He felt the shadow of his past creeping back, darker and more insidious than ever. The name Fenrir Greyback, the werewolf responsible for his curse, was once again being whispered in fearful tones after years of silence. Alongside giants and many other werewolves, Greyback had become one of the Dark Lord's most dangerous enforcers. With each passing month, the full moon grew heavier upon Remus. His curse, once a closely guarded secret, had over time become common knowledge. Despite graduating from Hogwarts with top marks, he found himself unable to secure any kind of employment, shunned and rejected at every turn. Because of Voldemort, werewolves had once again become a feared menace, much as they had been in the dark centuries of the Middle Ages. Peter Pettigrew, on the other hand, the least daring and perhaps the least talented wizard of the group, could do little more than echo his friends' frustration, offering his support and proving himself ready to do whatever was needed, should they call upon him. He cared for them deeply. To Peter, they had always been like brothers. At Hogwarts, they had looked out for him, pulling him out of trouble, time and time again. And now, faced with the looming dangers of war, Peter felt vulnerable, lost without his fellow marauders by his side. And yet, something inside him was beginning to change. He started to feel small, too small. Why did James always have to be the bravest? Why was Sirius always the most skilled duelist? Why was Remus always the cleverest? And why did he always have to be the most insignificant? Peter longed to prove himself, to do more, to be more. Above all, he craved the chance to make a difference, to earn the admiration of his friends at last. It was an autumn day in 1977 when the lives of the four friends, along with Lily's, were forever changed. Albus Dumbledore had summoned them for a message of the utmost secrecy.
There's a group,
he told them. A group formed to combat Voldemort's growing power and the ever-mounting threat he posed. A secret group, never officially sanctioned by the Ministry of Magic. And yet, a group whose mission many believed in. The Order of the Phoenix. So the rumors were true. For years, whispers had circulated about a society of rebellious witches and wizards, those bold enough to risk everything to stand against Voldemort and his Death Eaters on the front lines. And now, at last, the opportunity they had all been waiting for since leaving Hogwarts had arrived. The Order of the Phoenix had been founded by Albus Dumbledore in 1970, back when they were only just beginning their school years, when the First Wizarding War was little more than a prelude to the darkness yet to come. But from the very start, the wizard had known that Lord Voldemort, born Tom Marvolo Riddle, a former Hogwarts student just like them, was a threat that could not be underestimated. Perhaps in time, he would prove even more fearsome than Gellert Grindelwald himself. Over the years, many Aurors loyal to Dumbledore had joined the Order of the Phoenix, taking part in covert, strategic strikes aimed at dismantling the Dark Rebellion. Thanks to their efforts, the group had built an intricate counter-intelligence network, one that proved invaluable in the escalating war. Particularly ingenious was Dumbledore's innovation, modifying one of the most complex spells known to wizardkind, the Patronus, to serve not only as a guardian, but also as a messenger, capable of speaking and carrying vital information between members of the Order.
we know where he is.
And so, James, Lily, Sirius, Remus, and Peter became part of history, officially joining the Order of the Phoenix.
Did you know that exclusive Spellbook Chronicles booklets are now available? Ancient volumes filled with secrets just like the ones hidden in the restricted section. But instead of hiding from Madame Pince, all you need is a click. This Muggle technology is amazing. Each booklet contains one of the most beloved stories from the series, enriched with exclusive images. So, what are you waiting for? Start collecting them all. Your support is invaluable. Not only will you enjoy the magic, but you'll also be supporting the channel, allowing us to keep bringing you the most amazing stories, like the one in this episode. So enjoy the show.
The superiority of Voldemort's forces had already claimed several victims within the group, such as Fabian and Gideon Prewett. The Bones family was almost entirely wiped out. Benji Fenwick was brutally murdered, and so was Marlene McKinnon, whom Rubeus Hagrid described as one of the most powerful and brilliant young witches of her time. Her entire family was obliterated. Yet despite the heavy losses, the Order of the Phoenix still had formidable members within its ranks. Chief among them was the veteran Auror, Alastor Moody, whose relentless efforts were said to have filled half the cells in Azkaban with Death Eaters he had personally captured. Moody had gained a fearsome reputation, known to have killed several of Voldemort's followers, including Evan Rosier, a duel that left him with significant facial scarring. However, despite the Ministry granting Aurors free rein to use the unforgivable curses, Moody only resorted to lethal force when absolutely necessary. His skill and determination were exemplified when, after 6 months of relentless pursuit, he managed to capture Igor Karkaroff alive, an achievement that coincided with some of the most crucial arrests of the war. The Order received a much-needed reinforcement with the arrival of powerful witches and wizards. Not only James and Lily, but also Frank and Alice Longbottom, their former Hogwarts classmates, who had recently married and were exceptionally skilled. Over time, the couple drew the ire of Bellatrix Lestrange, not by provocation, but simply by excelling in their duty. Their skill and determination led to the capture, arrest, and imprisonment of numerous Death Eaters throughout the First Wizarding War, making them a thorn in the Dark Lord's side and a prime target for his most ruthless lieutenant. Frank and Alice, like James and Lily, were among the few who faced Voldemort himself in direct combat, a duel unlike any other. The Dark Lord, intrigued by the sheer skill and bravery James and Lily had displayed, extended them an invitation to join his ranks, eager to claim such talented and fiercely loyal witches and wizards for his cause. To James, Voldemort promised a reign of peace and security after what he deemed a necessary war to restore order. With Lily, however, he preyed upon her deepest insecurities and fears, the abandonment and rejection by her sister, a muggle consumed by envy, incapable of understanding or appreciating the gift of magic. Yet neither of the two Gryffindors were swayed by the Dark Lord's seductive words. They escaped his grasp and faced him once more, twice defying him and surviving. The same fate befell Frank and Alice. 3 direct encounters with Voldemort, 3 times they lived to tell the tale. A coincidence that, in time, would not be overlooked by the Dark Lord's superstitious mind. The autumn of 1979 brought with it an unexpected glimmer of joy amidst the ever-present shadow of war.
Big news.
Lily and James were expecting a child, a son they would name Harry. Peter, Remus, and Sirius, who was later chosen as the boy's godfather, could not have been happier.
About time.
For a brief, precious time, the horrors of battle seemed like nothing more than a distant, fading nightmare. But alas, that fleeting sense of peace was merely an illusion. A decade into the war, at the zenith of his power, an unforeseen event would irrevocably alter the course of history and shift the balance of the conflict. Sybil Trelawney, just over 20 and desperately seeking employment, encountered Albus Dumbledore in Hogsmeade at the Hogshead Inn, where she was residing in hopes of securing the position of Professor of Divination at Hogwarts. Although Dumbledore had no intention of continuing the subject at the school, he decided to offer her a chance due to her lineage. Unfortunately, Sybil demonstrated a complete lack of talent in the art of divination, prompting Dumbledore to decline her request. Yet, against all odds, she entered a genuine trance at that moment and made a fateful prophecy.
The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. But he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies.
The meaning of the prophecy, though enigmatic, was unequivocal in one aspect. The Dark Lord would be defeated. A chosen one would be born, whose existence was inextricably linked to Voldemort and his ultimate downfall. But who could it be? Besides Albus Dumbledore, another individual had the chance to overhear the prophecy, Severus Snape, who at the time served as a covert informant for the Dark Lord and was a Death Eater. However, fate dictated that Snape only heard a fragment of the prophecy, delivering an incomplete message to Voldemort that lacked critical components for its full comprehension. Feeling threatened, the Dark Wizard acted swiftly to thwart the prophecy's fulfillment, becoming consumed by it. After a lifetime dedicated to accumulating power and knowledge at the edge of mortal comprehension, and perhaps coming closer than any man before him to achieving divinity, he could not allow himself to fall. This simply must not happen. At that time, 2 infants could have been the subject of the prophecy: Harry Potter, the half-blood son of James and Lily Potter, and Neville Longbottom, the pure blood son of Frank and Alice Longbottom. Both families had sought to thwart Voldemort 3 times and were members of the Order of the Phoenix. Both children were born at the end of July. But which one? After much contemplation, Voldemort opted for young Potter. Neville Longbottom was a pure blood belonging to the Sacred 28, the British families considered truly pure blood as of the 1930s, whereas Harry shared a similar humble lineage with Tom Marvolo Riddle. He had Muggle blood flowing through his veins. Voldemort believed that for the prophecy to hold significance, his nemesis must reflect his own nature, his shadow. Snape knew all too well what that would mean. Lily would die, and her son along with her. This couldn't happen. It must not happen. Despite the darkness of those final years, Severus had never truly let go of his love for that smiling girl with the red hair, the only person in the world who had ever been able to bring light into his gray, dreary sky. Severus begged Voldemort to spare her, and the Dark Lord reluctantly agreed.
I beg you,
However, knowing that he
lord.
could not trust anyone else to protect Lily, especially someone as capricious as Voldemort, who might change his mind on a whim, and understanding that Lily would likely fight to the death to protect her child, Severus made his choice. He decided to abandon the Dark Lord for good, and went to Albus Dumbledore,
Please.
desperate to ask for his help in saving her.
Save her.
He pleaded with him to hide Lily,
I will.
along with her husband and son,
And
if
what
he
will
had
you
to.
give me in return?
The old wizard agreed, but insisted
Severus.
that Severus serve him as a spy among the Death Eaters.
Anything.
And so, the Order of the Phoenix welcomed a new member. Once the Dark Lord's intentions became clear,
Lily.
the Potters knew there was no time to waste.
Let's go.
They had to disappear, and quickly. With the help of a carefully devised plan orchestrated alongside Dumbledore, they decided that the safest course of action was to take refuge in Godric's Hollow. The old wizard had spent his childhood there, and still had trusted allies willing to offer their support.
I need your help.
Among them, the renowned magical historian, Bathilda Bagshot.
Bathilda.
Nevertheless, the Order believed that, to ensure the couple's utmost protection, it would be essential to select a secret keeper, a witch or wizard designated to hide a secret by means of the Fidelius charm, embedding it in their very soul. Once a keeper was selected, the person who told them the secret would find themselves unable to pass the information on again, as the secret keeper was the only one capable of revealing it, whether orally or written. The secret keeper could tell as many people as they liked, but they must do so voluntarily. The secret couldn't be blackmailed, bewitched, or tortured out of them.
An immensely complex spell involving the magical concealment of a secret inside a single living soul. The information is hidden inside the chosen person, or secret keeper, and is henceforth impossible to find. Unless, of course, the secret keeper chooses to divulge it. As long as the secret keeper refused to speak, you know who could search the village where Lily and James were staying for years and never find them, not even if he had his nose pressed against their sitting room window.
James and Lily had no doubts. Sirius was to be their secret keeper. He was, after all, their most trusted friend.
We trust you.
The most loyal, the most capable.
No.
But Sirius disagreed. In a desperate bid to outwit Voldemort,
Peter.
he persuaded them to choose Peter Pettigrew instead.
Me?
After all, who would ever suspect timid, unremarkable, easily overlooked Peter?
It's the safer way.
In the warmth of that summer, on the 31st of July, 1980, Harry Potter came into the world. For a time, within the quiet sanctuary of their hidden refuge, Lily and James devoted themselves entirely to their son.
What is it?
Shielded from prying eyes and guarded with the utmost care, those first months were filled with love and laughter, a fleeting moment of peace in a world teetering on the edge of darkness. So reads a letter written by Lily to Sirius during those days, later found by Harry many years after.
Dear Padfoot, thank you. Thank you for Harry's birthday present. It was his favourite by far. 1 year old and already zooming along on a toy broomstick. He looked so pleased with himself. I'm enclosing a picture so you can see. You know it only rises about 2 feet off the ground, but he nearly killed the cat and he smashed a horrible vase Petunia sent me for Christmas. No complaints there. Of course, James thought it was funny. Says he's going to be a great Quidditch player. But we've had to pack away all the ornaments and make sure we don't take our eyes off him when he gets going. We had a very quiet birthday tea, just us and old Bathilda, who has always been sweet to us, and who dotes on Harry.
We were so sorry you couldn't come, but the orders got to come first, and Harry's not old enough to know it's his birthday anyway.
James is getting a bit frustrated shut up here. He tries not to show it, but I can tell. Also, Dumbledore's still got his invisibility cloak, so no chance of little excursions. If you could visit, it would cheer him up so much. Wormy was here last weekend. I thought he seemed down, but that was probably the news about the McKinnons. I cried all evening when I heard. Bathilda drops in most days. She's a fascinating old thing with the most amazing stories about Dumbledore. I'm not sure he'd be pleased if he knew. I don't know how much to believe, actually, because it seems incredible that Dumbledore could ever have been friends with Gellert Grindelwald. I think her mind's going, personally. Lots of love, Lily.
Unfortunately, things didn't go as they had hoped. Just as they believed Voldemort would underestimate Peter, they had done the same. Throughout that final year of the war, Peter had remained in the background, unnoticed. No crucial missions had ever been entrusted to him. He had begun to feel useless, his frustration festering first into self-loathing, then into resentment toward his friends. Amid the chaos of death and brutality that defined the First Wizarding War, Peter's thoughts grew twisted, darker with each passing day, until at last, fear took hold. Perhaps, he thought, if he revealed the secret to the Dark Lord, his own life would be spared. Perhaps Voldemort would even show mercy to James and Lily. After all, it was the child he truly wanted. Maybe, for the first time in his miserable existence, Peter would be rewarded for his actions. Maybe, for once, he would finally be someone.
Tell me.
And so,
Peter
Pettigrew
Where are
made his choice.
the Potters?
He betrayed his friends, revealing their secret to the Dark Lord, and in doing so, he sealed his fate, becoming, at last, a Death Eater. On Halloween night, 31st October 1981, Pettigrew disclosed the Potter's location to his master. Voldemort arrived at Godric's Hollow, and with the Fidelius charm broken, he simply entered their home. Once inside, he murdered James and Lily, who were unarmed. The 2 young members of the Order could do nothing against Voldemort's might this time. However, an inexplicable event occurred that night, perhaps the most mysterious and baffling moment in the entire history of the Wizarding world. When the Dark Lord aimed his wand at the infant, unleashing the deadly green light of Avada Kedavra, the curse that kills without any chance of defense, it rebounded, causing no harm to little Harry. Instead, the curse turned upon its master, disintegrating his body. Among all the theories surrounding this occurrence throughout history, one explanation stands out above the rest: love. Lily's selfless sacrifice for her son created a powerful protective barrier of ancient magic around Harry that shielded him for many years to come.
Ancient magic.
But for the Order of the Phoenix, the war was far from over. That same tragic night, Alice and Frank Longbottom received an unexpected visit. Bellatrix Lestrange, on the run with a group of Death Eaters, including Barty Crouch Jr., was consumed by rage, unable to accept the Dark Lord's defeat. Desperate to find a way to restore him, she unleashed every ounce of her fury and despair upon the two Aurors. With violence, the Cruciatus curse was unleashed upon the couple, tortured to the brink of exhaustion. Bellatrix sought information about the whereabouts of the Dark Lord, information the Longbottoms could never have known. The pain, pushed beyond any limit, drove the couple to madness. Frank and Alice were placed in the Janus Thicky ward for irreversible spell damage at St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. And due to the extreme torture they endured, they were left unaware that they had a son together.
Dad?
This crime ignited a wave of fury across the wizarding community, so intense that the Ministry of Magic faced critical pressure to apprehend those responsible. When Bellatrix was captured, she was tried before the Council of Magical Law and sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban. Unlike many other Death Eaters, she did not deny her loyalty. Bellatrix proudly declared her unwavering allegiance to Voldemort and insisted she would wait for his return. When Sirius Black arrived in Godric's Hollow and saw the lifeless bodies of his friends, he understood everything. Aside from Lily and James, he was the only one who knew that Pettigrew had been their secret keeper.
Filthy traitor.
The weight of that realization would haunt him for the rest of his life. Sirius, as James and Lily's chosen guardian for their son, immediately offered to take him in.
No.
But Rubeus Hagrid, following Dumbledore's instructions, insisted that Harry was to be taken to his aunt, Petunia.
Fine.
Resigned and broken,
Just take it, Harry.
he handed over his flying motorbike to Hagrid, telling him he wouldn't need it
I won't be
anymore.
needing it anymore.
Overcome with guilt and fury, and knowing of Pettigrew's betrayal, Sirius wasted no time. He tracked Peter down, determined to take revenge. But Pettigrew was quicker. As Sirius approached, Peter unleashed a powerful explosive curse, obliterating everything around him and killing 12 Muggles in the process. In the chaos, he severed his own finger, leaving it behind as evidence of his supposed demise before vanishing, transformed into the small, insignificant creature he truly was. Sirius was arrested, accused of being a Death Eater, of murdering Peter and the Muggles, and of betraying the Potters. Without trial, he was sent straight to Azkaban. The surviving Muggles who had witnessed the event had their memories erased, with the incident officially explained away by the Muggle-worthy Excuse Committee as a mere gas explosion. Meanwhile, Peter, believed to have died heroically confronting Sirius, was posthumously awarded the Order of Merlin First Class. His mother was presented with both the honor and the only thing left of him, a single severed finger. The last of the marauders, Remus Lupin, was left utterly heartbroken.
I promise.
3 of his closest friends were gone,
Keep them safe.
murdered, betrayed, and Sirius, the man he had once trusted with his life, was now locked away in Azkaban. The war was over, and yet,
I couldn't.
why did it feel so impossible to smile again?
And so, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs, the story of the Order of the Phoenix teaches us that even in the darkest moments, there's always the choice to seek the light. After all, Albus Dumbledore always said it, didn't he? It's not our nature that defines who we are, but our choices. Until next time, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs, I remain your loyal and charming adventure wizard, Quentin Pentaryn. Always here waiting for you in the next episode and for another extraordinarily stupendous adventure.